So it is my pleasure to welcome you back for a panel. They are all here, you all, to actually help you be successful in acquiring an internship and getting ready to do that internship and nailing that interview. So let's go ahead and let me introduce you to each one of these individuals. They're going to tell a little bit about their particular experience with internships. We have two individuals who are parts of organizations who have managed and led virtual internships in their organizations. We have Desiree Sharp with us from US Engineering. Welcome, Desiree. And we also have Chris Fry here with us from Urban Leaders Fellowship. Welcome, Christopher. Great to have you. We also have two folks who are very similar to you in that in college, they were seeking internships. In 2019, in 2020, we saw 49% fewer internships that we'd seen in 2019. So Justin Binnicker is here with us because he found a way to figure out to do an internship a couple of different ways with virtual internships. And Selena Hunter is with us. She not only did a virtual internship, but turned it into a JOB, where she is now located at Linson Associates. So excited to have them here with us. We're going to kick it off with Desiree sharing a little bit about US Engineering and what you've learned across virtual internships. So welcome, Desiree, and then we'll hit Christopher, you'll go next, Justin, and then we'll wrap it up with Selena. Everybody who's out there in the audience, we want to make sure that you are engaged with us in the chat and Q&A. We're here to answer your questions, so feel free to put some of those questions in as we go. Desiree, kick us off here.
Hello, everyone. I'm so excited to be here with you this afternoon. I'm Desiree Sharp, and I manage our internship program at US Engineering. We dabbled into the virtual space by accident with our program from last summer. Our typical program is in person, but due to COVID and all of that, we quickly transitioned over to a virtual space, and we've learned a lot. Definitely going to keep some of those aspects into our future programs as well. So,
Desiree, yeah, we'll go next, Christopher, with you. We'll follow up with some other questions, but yeah, Christopher.
Great, thank you. And thank you, Desiree. So Chris Fry, Co-Executive Director of the Urban Leaders Fellowship. And then just real quick, thank you, Leanne, and thank you to Bruce Foundation broadly, just for taking on vShips and this incredibly meaningful work. Thank you to everyone else who's also on the panel. Really excited to learn more about each of you. And then lastly, just kudos to you all for being here. I commend you, whether you've had a vShip or an internship or any type of ship, right? Or whether you're trying to figure out what one is or how do I land one, you're in the right space. So kudos to you. And then again, Chris Fry, Co-Executive Director of the Urban Leaders Fellowship. What that really means, so the Urban Leaders Fellowship, ULF, is a national nonprofit that focuses on community impact. And what we do, in a nutshell, is help coordinate upwards of 120 plus fellowship placements across 100 organizations across 10 cities across the country. And so basically, last part is that what that means is we've just spent a great deal of time thinking about how do you secure fellowship and internship and externship placements, and how do you support and manage that work in the virtual setting? Because last year and this year, again, we are fully virtual. And so we're seeing just a large number of people and institutions, organizations trying to figure out, how do we do this work at a high level? We can't be in person, and it really can be done at a high level. So we just encourage you to throw as many questions as you have in the chat and make sure you get what you need from this session. So thanks for having me here. And sorry if I took too much time, Leanne.
You're fine. Justin?
Hello, my name is Justin Binnicker. I am a sophomore at Graceland University, studying sport management, business administration, and social change. So a lot. but I think the reason that I'm here to talk specifically is because I've had multiple internships over a virtual platform. I had one with a music company and organization, and then also have done stuff with the Bruce Foundation, which has obviously been virtual, and I did a social change internship with Startland. So I've had a fair share of experience with some of the virtual platform and setting. So it's an honor to be here. Thanks, Leanne.
Justin, Selena?
Hi, everyone. My name is Selena Hunter, and I currently serve as the Operations and Accounts Coordinator for Linton Associates. And we are a strategic consulting and public relations firm that's based in St. Louis, Missouri, but I actually work remotely from Kansas City, Missouri at the moment. Mindy knows I'll be in St. Louis sooner rather than later. So I graduated from the University of Missouri with a bachelor's of journalism with an emphasis in strategic communications back in May of 2020. And I am currently obtaining my master's of arts in marketing communication from the University of Denver. So I'm about 4 weeks into that program, and it's going really great, and I'm really excited about it, but I'm also doing that virtually. So I started my virtual internship journey when I was just 19 years old with a nonprofit called Six Cells based out of Chicago. And they are an organization that focuses on advocacy and raising awareness for the sickle cell disease community. And then back in that was last July, where I started working as a virtual fellow with Linton Associates. And then in October, I was promoted to a full-time position. So I'm really excited to be here and just answer any questions that you all may have.
Excellent. So, panel, there was a question that was actually left from the last part of the workshop that I think could be really a nice segue into this. The question was, how do you actively engage with your connections on LinkedIn? And Selena, in a small breakout group, had shared with some folks who are here today that networking was really one of the strongest ways to even find virtual internships and that kind of a thing. So you can't find those. And if you don't have a network, I mean, you really have to use your LinkedIn to be able to do that. So Desiree, do you want to talk a little bit about how you engage with your networks on LinkedIn? And anybody else can also chime in.
Sure. LinkedIn is an excellent resource for, just a little bit of everything, really, right? But the way that you're able to just connect and people email me frequently, just like, hey, I see this opportunity. I'm really interested in it. I'd love more information about it. And because you took that initiative, I'm more than likely going to either have a conversation with you myself or definitely get you in front of the right person, right? Because that is a step further than someone else may have gone. So that is, LinkedIn is the perfect place for that, in my opinion.
Panelists, we can make this like a discussion. You guys can just jump in there. So don't hesitate to come off mute and jump in there. And also, those of you in the audience, make sure you throw us some questions in the question and answer or the chat, either place. We'll watch both.
Yeah, well, being that I'm still in college and actually kind of in the prime market for obviously trying to get jobs in the next couple of years. LinkedIn's been incredibly valuable resource for me. I preach it all the time to fellow classmates and students. It actually, LinkedIn was the reason like I said in the intro, I am a sport management and business administration major. So I have pushed trying to get sport jobs, and I got an invitation to apply for a sport job from someone that worked for the Kansas City Royals. And I would not have even known about that experience if I wouldn't have been on the LinkedIn platform, been actively engaging in the platform, posting, my job experience and what I had, because the person was recruiting and looking around and saying, oh, well, I see that you've worked for the Kansas City Mavericks prior. I've seen that you've had experiences with these other sports organizations and teams. We would like you to apply for this. So LinkedIn is absolutely extremely valuable. And I mean, for a growing professional, it's critical to get on that. And people want to help you on that platform. They want to see you succeed. And like Desiree said, it shows initiative when you're intentional on that platform. And so people have been so willing to help me in my journey. So I would definitely utilize it. Extremely valuable.
Excellent. I think I've got a question coming in here for Desiree and Chris. So for Desiree and Chris, oh my, what does a day in the life of a virtual intern look like at your respective organization? So what does it look like with ULF, and what does it look like at US Engineering? Chris?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. I think first, I just have to affirm what Justin said around LinkedIn and thinking about like, what networks are you currently a part of right now? Like, ask everybody and connect with everybody and build your LinkedIn network, and then be intentional about updating it, because on the employer side here, we use LinkedIn to recruit. And I do explore what networks people are a part of and what organizations they are connected with, and who they know and what they're like. We absolutely use it. And so it's just a really valuable place for you to say, like, actually, this is a place for me to codify my professional network in a sense, but also like, if you have to start with your personal network, do it. Start there and then just start building it out and lean into the platform. It is going to be around for a long time yet to come. And so to answer the question, a day in the life, it entirely depends what organization you're with. ULF specifically has a 2-part model. And so you spend your first half of your a local nonprofit or a local government entity tackling a specific issue. And it's a defined project that you have. And then you spend the second half of your day with us building out policy with a local elected or appointed official in one of our 10 cities. So that is like the broad level strokes of a day in the life. And so I think to maybe try and drill down a little bit, what does it actually look like? It looks like this, and I'm sitting in my own home space here, right? And it is mostly around like, how do I structure my time, and how do I structure the work that I'm tackling? And so we can get more into that, and hopefully some questions around there. But for the most part, I would say like a day in the life. I'd rather say like a week in the life to say like, what we strongly encourage all of our virtual interns to do, all of our virtual fellows to do, is first just like build as meaningful and intentional of a relationship with the people you're going to be working with right off the bat. Step 1, build those relationships. 2, like get super clear, like what is the work I'm tackling here? What does success look like for me? And how can I be valuable? And then the more you're clear on that, like at the end, whatever you're doing, if they say this is what success looks like and it's what you're doing, then all of a sudden you have an endorsement on LinkedIn. It's that direct of a connection that you're providing value right off the bat. And then the last thing I'll say, and then turn it to you, Desiree, is the idea of a check-in. So whoever is supporting the work you're doing in your vShip, have either once a week, twice a week, 3 times a week. You need to consistently be checking in with people, which is one of the most hardest parts when you're virtual. And so ask on day 1 in that building relationship stage, like, I'd love, can we connect every Wednesday and Friday? Can we connect every Tuesday and Friday? I'd love, and once you create that structure, it just becomes so much more easy. It feels more connected to you. You feel like you're driving forward meaningful work. All of those things start to get into place.
Thanks, Chris.
Chris, you made a lot of great points there, and pretty similar to what you would experience at US Engineering. We're a mechanical construction company, and mechanical construction typically is done in person, right? So the thought that we moved to a virtual space was different and unexpected for all of us. So last year when we did that, we had 23 interns that we recently signed up for our program. And the thought was, we got to make sure that we are able to provide an opportunity for these folks, right? So a lot of conversations were had, and how can we make this more, as engaging as possible? It's not going to be the same, and that's okay. But as far as a day in the life for a virtual intern, our opportunities are varied. So construction operations intern is going to look a lot like an entry-level project engineer professional. So that's shadowing a project manager. And by shadowing, that's participating in meetings that they're going to, getting a feel of how each piece of the puzzle, works together, setting objectives, and trying to figure out getting those objectives done in a certain time frame, right? A marketing intern is going to be a little bit different, where they're looking at our internal communication and social media and our website and our ads and stuff like that. So so there isn't, I guess, a typical experience. It kind of depends on what team you are with and what that expectation is. But kind of going back to what Chris was saying, the virtual space, you definitely want to understand what the ask is. What are you seeking out of this particular opportunity? And what is your manager seeking? And just kind of understanding that and getting clear on that at the very beginning is crucial, probably to your experience. And then what's that preferred method of communication? Is it a virtual Teams meeting? Is it phone? Is it email preference? So just kind of, getting an understanding of what that preferred method of communication may be. Don't be afraid to ask for feedback. You want to make sure that that you are hitting those marks. You have a short time to make a great impression. So along the way, and Chris mentioned a particular cadence. So if that is weekly or every couple of weeks, just make sure that you're checking in with your manager and making sure that you are doing what is asked, and then give yourself some grace, right? Like, it's the experience is what you make of it, and we're all in this same space and we are all trying to figure it out. So, don't feel like, oh my gosh, I'm not doing what I should be doing, and things are just so strange. It's okay. We're all in the same space together, and we're learning as we go.
That's good to give us. Yeah, thank you, Desiree. That's good to give us all permission to recognize we're learning, we're growing together. I know Desiree and Chris and I have had a lot of conversations across this last year about learning together. That was the whole point of our vShips effort with the DeBruce Foundations. We believe that there are those who are out there. You guys are trailblazers, the folks who are on the panel, but now you all who are in this workshop, you're trailblazers. You're doing something for the first time that others have not done. I think too, I heard Desiree, you said a couple of things that are really good experiences and practices that translate from your virtual internship or any kind of internship into the job. And that is to determine what type of communication channel you want to have with your manager and what they want, what they desire, as well as to just upfront clarify what the expectations are, right? Like, those are just lifelong. It doesn't matter if it's your first job or your 50th job. Those are things that you need to keep in your tool belt that you're developing as a part of internship. So Selena and Justin, a question for you two has come in, and that is, did you clean up your social media before applying to internships? Did you not?
I personally did not, But I think that's because I've always been very intentional about what I put on my platforms, because whether you're looking at jobs, like it kind of started for me, it started back when thinking about applying for colleges. Anybody in that administration can do a Google search on you. So if they search you up and you're on Facebook, like F this, F that, just like that, like stuff you really should not just be putting out for the public to see. If you feel inclined to do that kind of stuff, just make your profile private and make a separate like professional social media. So no, I did not clean up my social media, but that's also because I've always been very intentional about it. So I would just say, just stay intentional about what you're posting. Be careful about what you're liking, especially like on Twitter, because you still get those notifications like Selena Hunter has liked this on Twitter. And if it's something that just should not be there, then just leave it alone, I would say.
I would 100% agree. I am someone that really intentionally posts. I'm not someone that just goes around and says a lot of outlandish things on social media. So I'm very, very intentional on what I'm posting and what I'm portraying to people. I'm someone that thinks about a lot of those things and makes sure that, every time that I post it, is this something that I want to be a reflection on me and my personal brand in my life? Because that's something that every time you put yourself out in a public forum, you are subject to criticism, subject to other people's perspectives, and just subject to, interpretation. So I think it's just important to be intentional with those things. And it's not that I'm not a passionate person. I definitely have a lot of things that I'm passionate about, but making sure that when you convey that in a manner that's professional and bringing about, progress maybe in a light that's correct and more politically correct, and not just saying, some things that you probably shouldn't. So I think just, making sure that it's just a good reflection on you every single time that you post.
Thank you. Yeah, that's what they call having a personal brand, right? It's like you have a personal brand and you're projecting this. So let's switch a little bit from those relationships that we developed there on social, and let's talk a little bit about Judy's question is, with a vShip, how are interns building lasting relationships with others? So, in a virtual fellowship, in a virtual internship, how am I going to make sure I build a lasting relationship with others?
I think a big part of that is, being open and communicating. I think that, especially on a virtual platform, that is really where the relationship building happens. So I know within my first week at Lent, as a fellow, Mindy had me and Natalie, who was also a fellow at the time, had us set up meetings, one-on-one meetings, 30-minute meetings with our other coworkers, just kind of non-work related, just kind of as a getting to know you type of meeting. And then within those meetings, I was able to learn more about them outside of the work that we do. So I was able to learn that we had some hobbies in common. Like one of my coworkers, I learned that she was a ballerina back when she did that, and I grew up dancing. I started dancing when I was 2 years old, so we shared that in common, and that was something for us to kind of talk about. So that's one thing. But then also, like, we talk about LinkedIn and Facebook, like connecting with people on those social media platforms, so that way when you do leave the job, you can still stay connected to them and still communicate with them and see what they're up to. I know with Natalie, I still keep up with her and see what she's doing. I'll text her every once in a while, just like, hey girl, like, how you doing? Like, what's up? What's new? So just being open to communicate and being open to be vulnerable, especially during the internship, because you're not going to have a perfect day every single day. So being vulnerable enough to share what's going wrong or how you're feeling for that day, I think that's really important for a relationship building, kind of building that trust between each other.
Desiree
I
or
love
Chris?
that.
Yeah,
I was
go
I
ahead.
was gonna say I love that, Selena. As a part of our program, our Rocky Mountain interns, they did like a 30-minute. They called them coffee chats, and they would get together with they would get together with different each other and other professionals, and like you said, just take some time to get to know them outside of the normal work. Day to day. And it's so imperative. Like relationship building is so important I mean, virtual space, non-virtual space. It's just how you maneuver throughout the world, right? So it's very important to take that extra step. And again, it shows a lot of initiative by doing that kind of thing. And I think that goes a long way for people.
I have to affirm that coffee chat thing, only because if I were to think about the 116 fellow placements we helped coordinate across 102 organizations last year, some of our most successful relationship building, it looked just like that, where someone had a fellowship placement at an organization and they maybe been working in so-and-so department, pick whatever department, but they said, actually, like, I'm going to have a coffee. I'm going to invite every single person I can, and I'm going to start building my own network and just say, I'm really interested to learn more about you and what you do. Do you have a half hour for me? And even just extending yourself, it goes such a long way, and you're going to be blown away by how many people say, yeah, I'd love to chat. And that's it. And doing that and taking, I think to Desiree's point, the intentional step, it's everything. And so that would be one thing. And then two, like, we talked about it in the social media sense, this idea of developing your own personal brand, but you're also professionals. And that means that like the work you put forward matters, and people are going to know when you are like getting it done and when you're not getting it done. And you all have relationships with people who who's getting it done, who's not getting it done. And when things are going on or like you have opportunities, you don't think of the folks that aren't getting it done. You think of like, oh, I need to build a team here, or who could I like share this with? That I just call that out to say like, that's also a real part. Like take it, get in there and figure out what success looks like and then deliver on it. And then ask everyone to go out to hang out for a coffee date. So
that's great. And Christopher, while we're on you, we've got Gina, who actually has led, I think, a couple of successful elections of county commissioners or sheriffs in her region. She wants to make sure that we get you connected by email address. So Gina, I'm absolutely going to get you connected to Chris and ULF. And here's another question that is coming in. How do you ensure effective communication between managers and coworkers in the virtual environment? So we kind of talked about this informal and this coffee chat, but we also have to get work done, right, with expectations. So how do you ensure effective communication between managers and coworkers in the virtual environment? What works and what hasn't worked or has been particularly challenging for those of you experiencing it?
I guess I would say, effective communication is the understanding that your message is received, right, at the core. So if you don't understand, then just asking for clarification and making sure that you do understand what that ask is, I mean, that's essentially what effective communication is. And going back to having regular conversations with your manager, that piece of it is important. So along your intern journey throughout that summer, just making sure that you are hitting those marks, and you do understand what success looks like. And I think, to Leanne's point, what does it look like if you don't? I think the lack of any communication, I think the lack of communication is probably the biggest downfall. So if you go too far and you haven't touched base and you think that you're doing the right thing, I think that's where it can get a little, you get a little bit too far down the road of getting a project done that's not missing the mark, but you just didn't check in. So I think just making sure that you are checking in, I think kind of alleviates that a little bit, just because you can be quickly corrected and put on the right path sooner than later.
Yeah, before it's too late, before something
Right.
didn't get done and now there's not a positive reference that can maybe come from that. So true. Selena, you're shaking your head. Does that resound with you?
Yes, I think I would say during that first virtual internship that I worked, very new in working in the field. So I know communication and effective communication, two totally different things, like very different things. To effectively communicate with somebody and to actually hear and listen to what they're saying, to give a great response to that. That is not something that I understood as a 19-year-old working for the first time in the field. And I think that is kind of what caused some tension at that time between me and my manager, because I wasn't quite understanding what she was asking of me, but I also don't think she was communicating it well also as far as what she was expecting. So that caused a little bit of tension, but as you work through it and you have conversations about it, and then that's how you kind of make it work and you make adjustments from that. So everything Desiree was saying, I definitely resonate with it, and it holds true. So I think the key is just remembering the term effective communication. Communication, yes, but effective communication, that is the winner above all.
So I'll jump in and share two thoughts. I think the first one is, I think this concept of being 19, it doesn't matter what your age is, but let's say this is your first time working with a new entity, and sometime you're like, well, how actually do I get clear on what I should be doing? Here's the two questions. What should I be focusing on? Or what are my priorities? And what does success look like in each one of them? And whenever you're meeting with either your person, your supervisor, your manager, whatever you want to call them, or however often you're going to meet with them, ask those two questions. And then part two here is some of the most effective things we've seen across all the fellowship placements we've talked about. There's a couple different strategies we've seen fellows utilize. One is the repeat back. And this can be live. So what I heard you say is this. You want me to tackle XYZ marketing platform, and you want me to come up with new strategies for X, Y, and Z. And you repeat it back while you're talking to them, or at the end of your check-in, you send an email and say, like, here's what we covered during our time together. Here's what success looks like for me next week. Do you have any feedback? And those two simple, like, repeat backs, super effective at making sure you're on the right page. You want to be successful. They want you to be successful. And that's just like simple, actually, like, how do you do that? Like, that is an effective tool. The other strategy is actually having a running check-in document that you share with whoever you're working with, whether it's a team or a manager. And that says those questions. It's just codified. It's just written down. And so every time you connect with somebody, you have your notes in there. You have exactly what your current progress is. You have exactly all your priorities. Here's what next week I'm tackling. And when you have all that down in one place, it's just amazing how easy it is to start feeling successful.
Yeah, that's actually really helpful, because this is a question I was going to pitch it to you, Justin, because it's like, from an intern's perspective. I mean, Chris just totally teed it up here, but the question in the chat is, from an intern's perspective, how do you keep projects on track and meet deadlines and expectations when you aren't physically in the office with your colleagues and managers? So Chris gave a great strategy for doing that. Justin, have you found anything that's worked for you when you were doing a virtual internship?
Yeah, no, when Chris was saying that, I was like, wow, those are definitely expectations and things that I need to be doing with the people that I'm working with, and my, communicating to my manager. I think that that's huge and can be a differentiator. But I think for me, my experiences have been really, really unique because both of them, and I think this is a commonality around virtual internships, because yes, there have been people doing virtual internships, but as an entirety, it's a very new entity. It became a necessity because of COVID-19. And so both of my experiences, one boss had never had an employee of any kind. And then the other experience was a internship that was, being implemented for the first time. And so we were kind of the test dummies, or so to speak. So for me, I think my biggest thing that I've tried to be intentional with in those is just creating communication, creating dialogue, and going out of my way to talk about not only the good things that I'm seeing, but also the concerns that I'm seeing, or how I'm feeling like I'm not completely understanding or getting. Because the truth is, especially when you're developing an entity for the first time, it's through trial phase. So they don't even fully know, what it's going to look like, how it's going to be portrayed, and if it makes complete sense until they've done it for the first time. So I think for me, that's been something, because at times it has been fairly difficult to get some of that stuff done, because you're not completely sure what your manager is expecting, and not only that, but what their objective or their goal is, and they don't even fully understand that to an extent. I think that's been just a critical part, is continually communicating and giving them feedback and advice on how they're communicating, how they're doing it, and like being someone's first employee in any capacity, you really it's important to teach them, because there were times where he was even like, am I doing this right? Like, is this the right way to navigate this? So
you had one good boss that they would admit that they just didn't know everything, and they were right about everything. Like, that may not happen in everybody's lives.
Exactly.
So that's good. It sounds like you had like a co-creator of the experience.
I think that was super, super valuable for me to understand too. Hoping to it's someday be a manager, be a leader, be a boss. Really observing like how successful leaders and managers look like, and what non-successful leaders and managers look like, and just what things that they do that are strong, that you can bring on to your future leadership positions and roles. Because
I think that, Christopher is snapping. I am too. I think that's how a lot of us learn. We do, and that's how we actually learn our agilities too. So where you all took the Agile Work Profiler earlier today, and we were talking about how to put it on your resume, how to put it on your LinkedIn, how to write about what you do well and what you like to do. Actually, these experiences and these exposures are how you develop these. And part of that is really role modeling. It's like paying attention and seeing somebody's style and saying, oh, I like that part of Desiree's style. I think I can incorporate that into what I do. I like that part of Christopher's or Justin's or Selena's style, and I think I can incorporate that, into what I do. I'm going to ask the panelists a question, and all of you in the audience have to answer this question too in the chat. Raise your hand, or just put a Y in the chat if you currently keep a calendar. So do you keep a calendar? Look, and Selena might keep two. She has her hand up twice. So, and Christopher might end. Yes, exactly. So, and a lot of times your calendar, right, is a really good place to keep yourself organized around these tasks. But this whole idea of creating maybe almost like a T-chart of what Christopher said too. So the T-chart of, hey, what are the priorities? And then what will that success look like? So on the left-hand side, right, here are the priorities that I have to get done. And then on the right-hand side, right, what will success look like that? And just track that with that calendar. You keep those calendars, track those kinds of successes. So we've got a good question coming in here from Nubia. And she's saying, from someone who feels insecure about effective communication, is it okay to ask for feedback in regards to my communication?
Yes.
So
100%.
it may be okay, but like,
Yes,
how do you do
100%
that?
true.
Like, what does that sound like?
I think when you get into a position, just having those weekly, I know I still have weekly check-ins with my manager. And it's an opportunity for us to kind of talk about, not only about what like projects and things are going on at work, but also like, how are you doing? How are you feeling? And then that's your opportunity to say, how has my communication been this week? Are there things that I could improve upon? Did I have like what is one high that I had during the week and what is one low that I had during the week from your perspective? I haven't asked that to Mindy, but maybe I should for the next time we meet. But those are ways just to ask for feedback. And I promise you, like, no employer is going to look down upon you for asking for that kind of feedback. They're going to appreciate that so much more rather than you just feeling like you're content in your position. I think you don't ever want to be in a place where you're feeling content and comfortable. You always want to feel like you could push the envelope a little bit more, feel a little bit uncomfortable, because if you're not uncomfortable, then you're not learning. So definitely ask for feedback all the time.
That's great. Well, surprisingly enough, we only have about 5 minutes left. And I do want to make sure that everybody on the panel, before we take another question, that everybody on the panel can give like your word of advice or your words of advice to people who are seeking vShips or, even interviewing for vShips, or even once they're on that vShip. Anything from that, like, hey, what would be your words of advice? So we're just going to popcorn around the screen. We'll go Selena, Desiree, Kristen, and Justin. Selena?
Okay, I have 2 quick tidbits of advice. The first one is when you're searching for your internship, this is kind of what I was discussing earlier at the table. When you're searching for your virtual internship opportunity, get away from get away from Indeed and like those type of job boards, because those are not the optimal place to find those. Reach out to your networks. Indeed, like, you never know how long it's been that position has been up there. Like that position could have been filled and you're just wasting your time up like filling out the application. So get away from those, go straight to your networks, go to LinkedIn, those type of things. And the second would be, when you're in your position, do not feel afraid to manage up. And when I say manage up, that means making sure you hold your manager and your other coworkers accountable. If they said they're going to check over a document and have it to you by a certain time, if you haven't received it, it's okay to send an email and say, hey, I'm just checking on progress for this document that you were checking over, because that's another way to ensure that you're keeping projects moving. And another, like, they're really going to appreciate that you're keeping effective timing on your projects and things like that.
Those are great 2 tips, Selena. How about you, Desiree?
Oh boy, there's a lot, but I will narrow it down to just a couple. Really look at, okay, so this experience is obviously an opportunity for the employer to evaluate your skill set and determine if you're going to be a future employee and all of that great stuff, and not to minimize that at all. But this is also your opportunity to evaluate the employer for like a fit for your own personal self. Like, do you like these coworkers? Do you like what this mission is? Do you like how things operate? And or if you don't, because I mean, you may not like everything, but do you see that they're open to change or open to suggestion and stuff like that? And you may not even know what that looks like, but just in your day-to-day, like, do they seem to be open to trying new things and stuff like that? So take this time to evaluate what you're seeing. You have a lot to offer as well. And I don't want that to be remiss, like it's just the employer looking at you and evaluating you. You're doing the same thing, and you are just as valuable to the employer as they are to you. So keep that in mind. And then just it's kind of a self-awareness piece as well. So like with the profiler, like understanding what your strong aspects are, your strengths, and, really, hone in on those, and what makes you happy, and what do you like to do. Every job, you're not going to love everything about every job that you're going to be in, but is at the end of the day, is this fulfilling? Does it make you happy? Do you enjoy working up? And I think it's very important just to do that self-evaluation to really understand what you like, and just take that time to do that as you're going through this experience.
Okay, thank you, Desiree and Selena. We're on speed round. So Christopher and Justin, couple of words about advice.
Okay, I will try briefly. Just quick affirmation for Selena and the concept of feedback. If I am supporting someone in their work or I am leading someone virtually, if they're not asking for feedback, it's a flag for me. So ask feedback. How am I doing? What do you think? Is there any ways I can improve? And what do you see me doing well? Like, ask those questions and make a point of it to ask it every time you connect. And then Desiree, what she shared, I literally, like, if I could show you my notebook where I wrote down what do I want to share, that was exactly it. It was like, you just took your AWP, like, lean into that. And then simultaneously, I would just strongly encourage you to say, like, here's what I'm studying, or here's where I'm at in school, or here's what I'm doing. What are the things I want to learn more about? What are the issues I care about? What are the companies that are doing some cool stuff out there that I just want to learn more about? And how does that line up with something like my AWP profile? And then this is the big part. It's like, no vShip or no job or no anything's going to land in your lap. It just doesn't happen. And you have to get out there, and you have to hustle for it, and you have to look around, and you have to send emails, and you have to call. And so we just say that as you're going through this exploration process and the process of, like, I need to find something, like, take time, understand, like, look at your AWP profile. Like, what are the things I'm doing well? What are the things I want to grow in? And what are the things that I'm interested in and care about? And then try to find those entities out there and say hello.
Thank you. Justin?
So for me, biggest things from the intern, or the one that's trying to get jobs perspective, is just a couple tips that I've found super valuable that I've learned from people are, one, in an interview process or when applying for a job, make sure to find ways to differentiate yourself and stand out. Not in bad ways, not in ways like I'm wearing sweatpants to an in-person interview that you should be wearing a suit and tie, but find ways, whether that be sending a personalized written letter to an employer, or connecting and asking follow-up questions, finding just a way to keep you on the mind of the employer, I think is something that's super, super critical and super valuable, and can help.
That is a great one. I'm going to have to cut you off because they're going to yank us off stage. But I want to, virtually they can absolutely do that, right? That's what happens. So, hey, I want to thank our panelists for being here today. Selena, Justin, Desiree with US Engineering, Chris with ULF. We are so thankful for you guys and what you've been doing.